Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Wild Wild Bets. We are happy to be here for another roundup of your favorite dogies in the West. So, Shane, man in the Michigan hat, how are you doing, my man?
I am doing great. I'm in a hotel right now, traveling for work. This is a blue collar show, so we're on the road,
Yep.
getting it done. Actually, the sports book contacted me. They said uh, I requested my payout. They said you'll have to pick it up on a pallet. Got it stacked on a pallet for you,
Wow.
gold gold bars, and you'll need a box truck. So
Like in
driving
this like in the safe in our intro.
exactly, yeah. So
Wow, it's impressive.
long trip picking that up, but
Good for you.
cost of doing business.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, make sacrifices where necessary and sounds like a sacrifice worth making.
Yep.
Um, so I would just like to say, because we were talking a little bit about it before a show, and it kind of applies to a theme I would like to establish for everybody here that is following us and what we're doing here. My mantra for this year has been and will continue to be fade the Bulls. Ever since
Mhm.
Zach Levine made it known that he wanted out, he has been like, but not him specifically, but the whole team has just been absolutely atrocious. Um, the absolute worst versions of themselves of how they have been the past couple of years. And so we were talking about that, and I would just like to point out I placed a fairly large bet on the Bucks minus 9.5, and with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, it is currently 94-82 Bulls. So I'm
The Bulls are back.
trust me, when I say the mantra does apply, but not tonight.
This is the
That's
one
not,
time it didn't. Yeah,
yeah.
so
Um,
happens.
so with that, actually, let's just kind of run into. I know you probably don't have your records in front of you,
Nope.
but overall, from your memory, how did your Thanksgiving day, Thanksgiving weekend? How did all of it go? Did you eat a lot of food? What was the over under on scoops of mashed potatoes that you consumed?
I actually did pretty good for Thanksgiving. I had one healthy plate and then a couple pieces of pie, but I wasn't like sick afterwards. I think I was a reasonable amount of food. So no, that was good. As far as bets, so I tweeted out a video that I was placing one last bet to end all bets. Like I had lost several in a row, several that were really close or just bad beats. So I've been struggling on my plays, and I put my whole bankroll, so everything left in my account, on Michigan money line with like a boost. So it ended up being like minus 124. So I hit that, got me back up to quite a bit in the account to play with, and then I only played one NFL game last week. It was just Ravens -3, and that hit. I played one hockey bet, and that hit. So I haven't
That's not
really bet
true.
much.
You played Lions Packers.
No, I didn't actually bet it.
Did you not bet it?
Mm-mm.
Wow, I'm surprised.
No, so that one was one. Yeah. Oh no, 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 no. I did. It was so I had the bad Thursday. So I was remembering that wrong because I was also on Washington.
Yeah,
Thursday was really bad. So then that's why Saturday I placed that big bet to try to get my bankroll back. And then the following week, so the Sunday, of
later
the
that
NFL
weekend.
slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of the weekend I only placed one more NFL bet. So since I placed the Michigan bet, I've hit all my bets. So I'm not saying that I'm never going to lose a bet again, but people are talking.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
no, really good. And then obviously just as a fan, what I cared about most was Michigan just winning the game. But the fact that it's led to some bets that have hit in a row has been a nice bonus. So
For sure. I had a wet and wild Thanksgiving.
oh my. A lot of gravy.
I did not have one healthy plate. I had a one healthy plate and then another about a half a portion on the next plate, and then a slice of pie. I was, feeling myself, if you will, and very much enjoying the holiday and
Yeah.
the lovely bird that gave his or her life for my family. But the reason I say it was wet and wild is not because of Dolly Parton's halftime performance, but it was.
Calm down, Tony Romo. Ooh, Jim, I'm gonna bust Jim. It's like, calm down.
Jim, if you watch that video, for anybody
Jim
who does,
was so uncomfortable.
if anyone that doesn't know, like Dolly Parton performed the halftime show. She was wearing a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader outfit on stage that was like bedazzled and stuff.
And I'll just say, respectfully, would.
Okay.
Not gonna judge old Jim too hard, or Tony Romo too hard.
Here's the thing: is that she very clearly, like, obviously she has plenty of plastic surgery in multiple places on her body, and the other thing is that, like she was wearing like almost like a body sleeve. It looked like over her midsection where you would have the midriff on a cheerleader uniform.
Yeah.
So, just respectfully, I don't know. That's but anyway, that video of Tony Romo and Jim Nantz was hilarious because they come back from break and Tony Romo's just like he's just like all over her. He's like, oh wow, Dolly Parton, what an amazing performance. She's magnificent. Like she looks good too, blah blah blah. Jim Nantz is like, yeah, and he starts to very clearly transition to talk about the game. And Tony Romo's like, doesn't she look great, Jim? Dude.
Yeah, so about the game. My pants are so tight right now, Jim. Just me? Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, it was hilarious.
One of my favorite tweets from that portion of time was somebody they just said all it took was some tryptophan, some cheap booze, and men seeing their wives in sweatpants and gravy stained sweatpants to get horny for a 77-year-old woman.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, but the reason my Thanksgiving was wet and wild, getting back to that, was I did get sick. It wasn't because I ate too much. Other members of my family got sick as well, and I was up chucking all Thursday night long. So
when that happens at a Thanksgiving, I don't know if it was like a potluck, like multiple people brought different stuff. Is there a lot of like finger pointing that goes on?
No. Well, so we made it all. We made it all at my parents' house because we travel, and my other siblings were not able to be there. So it was just my family, and my parents. It could be easy to finger point, but I felt that we were very careful not to finger point. Like we were very much just like, hey, we got sick. Personally, I threw up unlike I've ever thrown up before, to be honest. Like I've never gagged so hard in my life.
Oh, I will keep that joke to myself. That's called personal growth. I could have said something there.
I know plenty about your personal growth.
Well, now the moment's right back to where it would have been. So.
But anyway, no. So we basically, it is easy. It could be easy to finger point,
Right.
but we all helped make the food, so it wasn't
Hmm.
like, oh, who did this or whatever. More of what it was I felt after I was done puking, I felt good. Like my appetite wasn't normal for probably another 12, 15 hours. Like I didn't have a normal meal until dinner, breakfast the next day or whatever. But the
Yeah.
point is just that once I was done, I legitimately felt like I'm over this. Right?
It
So
was
I
clearly like a food thing and not like I'm getting sick.
that
Which
was what I thought. Well, so I was very much like advocating for my family like, "Hey, mom and dad, we really appreciate all this food that you purchased and that we made and all this stuff." And we had told them we were going to help out with leftovers the whole weekend because we love leftovers and blah blah blah. But I was just like, respectfully, I don't think we should eat this because I don't know what it is that happened. We
yeah.
prepared everything the way we're used to, but something went wrong along the way, or
Hmm.
something was maybe mislabeled as expired or whatever.
Hmm.
And I just think it's best to not do it. And so anyway, my parents, I think they reluctantly understood. Um, and I say reluctantly just because for them they were probably thinking about the time and money spent on that food, you
Yeah.
know?
It's just disappointing too. You're like,
Yeah.
you know,
And so,
yeah.
but they kept eating it, and then my mom got sick that Friday night. But the reason that we're not sure if it was a virus flu thing or if it was actually like food poisoning is my mom just texted me like today and was like, "Hey, I'm feeling great. I'm back to 95%." I'm like, so you're still like not totally over, like almost a week removed. You're still not feeling completely yourself. And I know my wife, it took her some time to get back as well as my daughter. So very peculiar. Um, really, the only person that eats a lot that did not get sick was my dad. Everyone else that eats a decent amount got sick. My other two kids, they don't eat very much, and so they
Right.
they were fine. But anyway,
Hmm.
that was our Thanksgiving. As far as betting goes, though, betting was about as great as my puking was. I because the person I'm talking to in this podcast got me all hyped up on the Lions, and I had a lot of bets on the Lions, um, which none of them worked. And then I also had 4 Thanksgiving parlays that FanDuel put out that were all
Oh, yeah,
they were really fun.
yeah.
But the I only hit one of the 4, and it was the one with the worst odds. So, there's that. I was on the Cowboys over Washington, and I was on the over, both of which hit, which is awesome. And I'm watching Thursday Night Football, and we just hit the over. Let's go. That's a win for your boy in my NFL column.
Nice.
Um, that Thursday night game, San Fran and Seattle,
Hmm.
I was on the over on that one, and that one hit as well. So I had a
Wow.
good. I ended well after a rough start with the Lions.
Mm.
Um, Black Friday, I had a small bet on the Jets. That sucked.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, that one. So wait, yeah, I think I tweeted that one out. I think that I did lose that bet, so I have lost one bet since.
you had 10.5, didn't you? I had them at
Yeah.
9.5,
Did they lose
but
by 10?
I don't know. They
Yeah,
lost
I
by
was
a
on.
lot. I thought.
Okay, no, yeah, they didn't cover. So, yeah, Stan. Okay,
Um,
it feels like a trend that's always worked is bet on the team that's a big underdog that nobody likes. It feels like that's always been a way to make money in the NFL because everybody wants to bet the big favorites. They're like,
yeah.
oh, Dallas is way better than Washington. And it's like the spread's like 10 and a half, 11, something crazy for an NFL game. And the public's just like, oh, they're better than them. You bet
Mm-hmm.
it. Big favorites never work. That's why, like, the public always loses on the NFL. I don't know what it's been, but like these last 3, 4 weeks, big favorites are covering at a crazy pace. Um, I was listening to somebody else talk about this too, and they were saying like big favorites, like favorites of a touchdown or more, are covering at a pace higher than like the last decade or two.
That's crazy.
And it's just like I don't know what to do with that because I'm not going to bet favorite a team, minus 9.5. Like it just that's not a smart way to make money long term. But this
Right.
year, it's just that's what's happening. I don't know if there's less parity than normal or it's just one of those fluky things, but that's made it tough because I like betting teams like Washington plus 10.5, the Jets plus 10.5. Like it's just not working this year. So
Um, and then on Sunday I had Falcons and Texans money line. The Falcons one hit. The Texans one almost did. I
one
had the
pick away.
Raiders against the spread against the Chiefs, which did not. It looked good at start, but did not hit. I had Eagles minus 2.5. That was a big win against the Bills. Ravens minus 3. That one hit. Bears plus 3.5. Monday Night Football.
Yes.
That one hit. So I had a pretty good run, honestly, NFL wise after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
College football, I followed your advice and I went uh, all in on Michigan. Not all in. I didn't go quite as large, but I put down a sizable bet for the units that I'm betting.
Yep.
Technically it was worth 10 units of my size of units. So
Yeah.
um, and that obviously paid off. Michigan minus 3.5. They also covered, which was great. That
Yep.
field goal at the end was huge. You convinced me of a quorum parlay that did not hit, so thank you for that.
That one was close because he had 2 touchdowns. I think that was one of the legs, right? 2+ touchdowns,
he
and
uh
he needed like
he didn't
100
hit
yards.
yardage though.
He had 88 yards. I think he needed 100. So yeah,
Um,
I think
I
he
had
had
all
88.
I had Auburn plus 14.5 against Bama, and that one hit. That was an exciting game. And then
That was a good bet.
I had Notre Dame minus 25.5 and over 51.5, both as a parlay and separate, which hit for me against Stanford. So good week
Man,
with college
yeah, you've
football.
been across multiple sports. That's a really good weekend.
Yeah, well, we don't talk about college basketball, which I've just kind of stopped betting, honestly. And NHL, I keep betting it, and I keep being optimistic about Connor Bedard on the Hawks, but it's not really paying off very much. So I need to change my tactic a little bit over there. But NBA, I mentioned fading the Bulls is working wonders for me, other than tonight. So yeah, good overall, doing well. Uh,
Good.
so let's go ahead and get into kind of a main topic for discussion tonight. Um, we have obviously the big championship weekend coming up in college football, all the conference championships taking place. And I know that you're going to want to take a minute to speak specifically to Michigan, Iowa. But before we do that, just kind of in general, I want to talk a little bit about after the championship. So we'll
Mm.
cover what we think is going to happen in those games here in a little bit. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about some futures. So when looking at um, futures for the college football playoff and kind of who's going to make it, what scenarios are there for them to make it, I kind of think that's the direction we should go. So while I get this pulled up, talk to me a little bit about what the current standings are and where you think things could go this weekend.
So this is just off the top of my head. Right now, playoff rankings: Georgia 1, Michigan 2. Is Washington 3?
I couldn't tell you. I would assume
So,
so.
so yeah, the reason I think Florida State's 4, Texas is behind Ohio State. So I think that's Oregon, Ohio State, Texas.
Florida State's really
Obviously,
4. That's surprising to me.
I think so. And so the reason I don't know off the top of my head is obviously these rankings don't matter. A lot of what's these teams in this top 6, 7 are going to be playing this weekend. A couple of them playing each other, so it's going to sort itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Teams on the outside looking in, so this kind of relates to the futures. There's a couple teams that seem like they have a chance to make the playoffs, but need some other results to break their way. Ohio State needs multiple games to break their way. They would need Texas to lose. They would need Bama to beat or to lose to Georgia, so that keeps a one-loss Bama from jumping them. So And then Texas too. It feels like they might need a Florida State loss. Um, so as you're looking at futures, those are some things where it's like with this weekend coming up, there's a few teams where it's you win and you're in. There's a few other teams where you win, you need at least one other result to break your way.
Yeah.
So depending how, if you think that's going to happen or not, it could give you a lot of value. Like if you do think Florida State's going to lose this weekend, maybe betting Texas has more value, because that's going to,
Mm-hmm.
that game goes that way. Texas is in the playoffs. Now their odds, if they were like plus 900 to win the title, now they're going to be plus 500, So
Mm-hmm.
some things to consider is, who's on the outside looking in and what's the path for each team to make the playoff.
So on FanDuel, which is the one sportsbook that I know you and I are using currently, they have the way they have this organized, the futures, is they basically have it just getting the list of who would be in the playoff, right? So they have different combinations. And then after that, they also have rankings. So let's start with just the general list. And then obviously they have independent teams, like if you think they'll make the playoff or not. But starting with the list, tell me, what do you think is the most likely grouping they have on here based on the odds? The
So I'm
odds
trying
are
to pick the seeding too, like what seed they'll
no,
be,
no,
or
no.
just the
We'll do
four.
we'll do seeding next. Just the four teams. The odds for this are plus 185 for the most likely option.
Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, Florida State.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Now there are three combinations tied for the worst odds at plus 6,000. I want to see if you can get how many of those you can get.
So this is like the least likely, you're saying? I guess.
Yeah, according to their books, the least likely.
All right, let's try this. This is gonna be crazy. Ohio State, Washington, Texas, and Bama.
That is not one of the ones listed here.
Okay, because that's like I'm thinking chaos
I think,
scenarios.
yeah, I think you're going a little too crazy on that one, maybe.
Michigan State, Duke. Yeah. So for sure, either Washington or Oregon's going to be in it. So I think to be higher odds, there's going to be Washington being one of those four is going to be less likely because they're the underdog this weekend. So I'm going to say it's going to be Washington, Michigan, Bama, and Texas.
Very close.
Because I'm wondering if Bama beats Georgia, if you can do Georgia to miss the playoff,
So I'll tell you the one that they have on here that you were very close to. It has Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Georgia as
Okay.
the four teams.
So in that scenario, they're saying Bama, if they're in, obviously beat Georgia, but Georgia doesn't fall out of the top 10 or the top 4, which to me means Texas probably had to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So see if you can guess either of the other two. I know it's kind of a fun exercise.
Is Ohio State in one of them?
Yes.
Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Texas. Oh, no. Georgia, Washington.
Yep, that is one of them.
Okay.
Correct. And the other one is Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. Which would be wild because that
crazy.
Be no SEC
so no
team.
SEC team.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's possible.
Well,
because if Georgia wins, they're obviously in. Bama would have to win, and then you keep out both one-loss SEC teams. That's tough.
Yeah,
that's the least likely one to me.
I feel like for that to happen, you'd have to have Texas, Florida State. Honestly, you'd have to have all four teams probably like totally blowing out their opponent, and then Bama and Georgia to have like
a gross game.
That
Bama wins.
Yeah, a super ugly game.
Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's possible,
Huh.
but it's super unlikely. Yeah.
Also,
Okay.
so I don't
So let
think we're going to end up in a situation we have to worry about this, but I'm going to lose my mind if Bama makes the playoff and Texas doesn't, because Texas has beat Bama
yeah.
at in Tuscaloosa. So I don't care if Bama beats Georgia at the end of the season. Okay, fine. If that happens and you want to put Bama in the playoff, I get it, but Texas better also be in the playoff over
Well,
Georgia if you need to.
I'll tell you based on the books here, the odds. Um, it seems like the book is suggesting that if Bama beats Georgia, then Georgia is out. And I say that
Which is
because
crazy, but I think they should be.
yeah, so at plus 650 they have Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, and Florida State. At plus 1000 they have Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, and Texas. And then at plus 1600 they have Michigan, Washington, Alabama, and Florida State. So all of those, basically when
Huh.
Alabama, you have to get down to plus 2500 odds before you have Alabama and Georgia both in.
If there's some way, the first scenario you mentioned and the last one, I'm guessing Bama probably will jump to like the 3 seed. If I don't think Florida State moves above the 4 just because of the quarterback injury. And if Michigan's the 1 and gets to play Florida State, that's like the dream matchup.
Yeah, true.
Um, but also last year too, the dream matchup was Georgia has to play Ohio State and we get to play TCU. So it's like,
True.
it still didn't work out for us that year. But so I'm not going to worry too much about the matchups. But obviously, I'd rather play Florida State than Oregon. Yeah.
So then let's do this to finish off this discussion. Let's go with like the most likely option, which again was Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Florida State. What do the
Yep.
books say is the ranking for that? The most likely ranking or
Georgia
seeding?
1, Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Oregon 3, Florida State 4. And I think if Texas is the 4, they're the 4th seed too.
All right, so Florida State in that order is plus 310. With Texas in that order is plus 410. And plus 500. I don't see how this happens, honestly. But plus 500 is Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Oregon.
No, if Oregon wins, that win's more impressive than anything Florida State did. Florida and the committee doesn't want Florida State to even make the playoff, so there's no way they jump to 3.
I
I like
think
those first two. I think if you bet both those first two, you have pretty good odds of hitting one or the other. And if they're one's plus 310 and one's plus 410, you said right?
yep,
It's a
yep.
decent profit if you hit one of those. I might be doing that.
So I think we talked about this, but this would be a nightmare scenario for you. But at plus 5,000, they have Michigan 1, Oregon 2, Bama 3, and Georgia 4.
If Michigan, gets the 1 seed and has to play 4 seed Georgia, I would be upset. Yeah.
Well, you better be rooting for Georgia then this weekend.
I'm kind of not, because I don't think so. If Georgia loses, I think they're out. If Texas wins, I don't know. A part of me wants the chaos, but it's hard to separate as a Michigan fan, where I'm also conflicted because I want as easy a path to a title as you can get.
Right.
And if chaos doesn't help that, but just as a fan of the committee having to make tough choices and stuff, it would be really cool if Bama beat Georgia and Florida State loses. What do you do with Texas then? Is
Right.
it Texas? Do Bama and Georgia both make it?
Yeah.
Ohio State, I don't think jumps in that situation, but you have to consider it. I like those two bets though. The plus 310, because it's, to me, really you're just betting on Georgia to win, Michigan to win, and Oregon to win, which are all
Yep.
favorites. and then your last one's going to be either Florida State or Texas pretty safely, I think. So, you're basically, by betting both those two bets, you're just betting the favorites to win this weekend.
Real quick update on the Chicago Bulls. So
did they lose?
No. So
Oh.
Alex Caruso hit a game-tying 3, and it's 106 into overtime.
What was your line you bet? 14.5?
No, that was the Pistons, which lost. This one is 9.5.
Could happen in overtime.
It could. As long as the Bucks can go on a run, that's what I need. So, but anyway, yeah. So the college football landscape is interesting. I miss when Notre Dame was when Notre Dame was relevant, where you would talk about this weekend and be like, okay, well, which team do we want to win and blah blah blah. Because for me, I'm just voting for chaos. Like
right.
The only team I'm like that I'll watch, I'm like, ooh, I really actually would like to see them do something is Washington, but I don't even have very much skin in the game with them. I might not even bet them. So
with the 12-team playoff, would you be in the mix? What's Notre Dame ranked? Like 14th?
No, 15? Notre Dame I think is 15.
So you could be at the point though where enough team. Well, a lot of those so that's going to be interesting too. With the 12-team playoff, there's going to be several teams in that like back half of the 12 who aren't even playing this weekend. So now
true,
they're going to move up or down just based on what the conference champions do. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, okay, so if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're probably rooting for like Louisville to lose. That might be a team you jump if they lose, but there's not that many of them that are good enough to play this weekend, but bad enough to drop behind to like a 15th, 16th ranked team. So
yeah, I didn't even think about that you'd have, it would seem that basically the bottom 6 seeds will pretty much be set for that 12-team playoff going into the playoff weekend.
Because if Washington beats Georgia or Washington beats Oregon, right? It's like that's an upset, but now you just flop the 2. Everybody who was below them stays where they were.
I guess the biggest thing that could happen is like if what are their rankings? If Oklahoma State 19 beats Texas 7, is
then
that
they
enough?
Jump and maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe like Oklahoma State makes it to that 12th or 11th seed, and
or
Texas
Iowa,
might fall
theoretically,
out. Yeah, Iowa's actually a great example because of 18-2, like 8-2 being the ranking and 18 the ranking.
You could jump from 18 to 12 if you beat a 2.
Yeah,
maybe.
Or Louisville, Florida State is 15-4. Like,
yeah, Louisville would be in a 12 team if they won this week.
Yeah,
sure.
those ones are interesting for sure. So
it's the right move. It's going to be so exciting next year.
100%. I'm looking forward to it.
Like they've done the past few years, and you showed me this. There's always the thing that says, if this year was a 12 team, this would be the teams. Yeah. And you just look at it and you're like, that would be awesome.
It just is more fun. It just is. And more than anything, it makes me happy for the players.
Yeah.
Because more and more players will have the opportunity to play meaningful postseason football. So it's going to be great. And it's going to be great for this show because there's going to be all sorts of new fun bets that'll come out as that gains traction next year. So, but Notre Dame will never get a first round bye because they are not a conference. They're not in a conference. So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Is that enough to push Notre Dame to a conference? Because this is the first time. It's always been a little bit of a competitive advantage. Like, if you're in a conference, you have the 13th data point, and in theory, it's like that could be a problem for Notre Dame, but it's never been a problem so obvious as like an automatic bye. So you wonder, is that enough? With college football landscapes changing so much with realignment anyway. You wonder.
Well, and Notre Dame has a new athletic director for the first time next year. What are his
TV
opinions?
deals are always rotating.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. I forgot to mention one thing on college football, which was our sharp money shootout from last week. We had Iowa and Nebraska. You took the under
Yeah.
And so I was forced to therefore take the over. And I believe it was 24.5 was the number we had. To be honest, I was feeling fairly optimistic because going into the fourth quarter, I want to say it was 10-10. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, please, like just 2 field goals. Like I don't care if you go. And then as they weren't scoring and it was getting close, I was like, go to overtime, please. Like,
Yeah.
please go to overtime.
Because you do
And
that with the short field, and then they trade field goals maybe on the first
yeah,
possession.
exactly.
College football, you go to overtime and points go crazy. So yeah.
But that didn't happen. Iowa kicked their game-winning field goal, and 13-10 was the final. It is crazy that no matter the number they set it at, they still find a way to go under. It's crazy.
So talking about that, because
Yeah,
that
let's
transitions to
transition
the
to this
game
week.
this weekend.
Yeah.
Michigan's favored, I think, by 20. It might be down to like 21.5 or 22, right?
Hold on. I have this written down somewhere. Let me look. It's 21.5
But the
is the
over-under is
line.
like
34.5. 34.5 is the over-under.
I might have to bet the over. I think
Yeah.
Michigan gets past that themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be sweating that out. If Michigan's up 28-0 at the end of the first half, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the question is just how good actually is Iowa's defense, or is it the product of playing the Big Ten West, which is a lesser?
And the problem, I do think they're good. They gave up 31 to Penn State, who Penn State's offense is much worse than Michigan's. You also wonder at some point, and they've been good despite how bad their offense has been. Their offense, if they go 3-and-out, they give you a short field. You're losing the field position battle. Your defense can only bend but not break so many times before they break. And so, Michigan played them in the Big Ten championship 2 years ago. Iowa always had a good defense. They had a good defense then, and Michigan put up 40 something. So,
who did Michigan play last year?
Purdue.
That's right. I knew that.
Michigan might have been in the 50s. I forget the final score 2 years ago. But I'll just say this too. I respect what Iowa's program is. They're a developmental team who doesn't recruit very well. This is going to be their last Big Ten title they ever make. People can argue on that, but with realignment, so now there's no West. You have to actually be the second best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Plus, you have teams like Oregon coming to the Big Ten. Iowa's never making a Big Ten championship game again.
Yeah.
As a Michigan fan, I'm kind of mad we have to play Iowa. It's almost this might come off as super arrogant, but it's almost like a disgrace that we have to face this team. It's Deacon Hill. Have you seen him for Iowa?
No.
He might be the worst quarterback to ever touch a football in organized sports history. Michigan beat you 2 years ago with Cade McNamara. We gave you Cade McNamara, and then you just go out and get him hurt, and then you trot out, this guy, his completion percentage is like 38%. He has more interceptions than touchdowns. Iowa's best offensive play is to punt the ball.
Smells like a Bears draft pick to me.
Future Bear. He is garbage. And I'm saying this too as a bigger guy, so no disrespect.
Oh, okay. I did see this guy because I watched some of that Nebraska
You
Iowa
immediately
game.
know who I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
I guess they don't have salads in the cafeteria at Iowa. Holy hell, dude! With all due respect, this guy has to put his belt on with a boomerang. He's built like somebody tried to pour 7 gallons of pudding in a 5-gallon trash bag. This dude is an abomination. He shouldn't be on the same football field as Michigan. I with all due respect, if I showed up in Indianapolis and I spent 10 minutes reading the playbook, I would be a better quarterback than Deacon Hill. Dude is terrible. They talk about corn in Iowa. This dude's on the candy corn diet. I'll stop, disrespecting our opponent, but if Michigan doesn't win this game by 49 points, they should self-impose a playoff ban. This game should be over. halfway through the second quarter. JJ McCarthy shouldn't see a second half snap. Really, it's just go in there, stay healthy, business trip. So this is a DraftKings line, but I think you saw this too. I think I sent it to you. The team total first half for Iowa is 0.5 points. So
Oh yes,
even,
I saw that.
and it's even money.
That's crazy.
I think I have to bet the under. It's too funny to not bet it. So
well, that's the thing is that Michigan's defense is good. Like
they are good, but they have given up some like early touchdown. Like Indiana scored on their first drive. I think Minnesota scored on their first drive.
Dude, it'd be hilarious if Iowa gets the ball and goes down and scores a touchdown.
You know, it'd be great. Iowa wins the toss. They elect to receive. First play of the game, 80-yard touchdown pass. Oh man, yeah. I honestly think this could be a game Iowa doesn't score.
All right, I
don't know how Iowa gets more than 3 first downs in this game.
Tell me how much? Okay, let's say Iowa is shutting out Michigan. Okay, how many points does Iowa have to score in the first half to get plus money odds on Michigan money line?
28. I think honestly, if this game's 21-0, Michigan's probably still like minus 150. I don't know. It's hard to say, obviously, but
I mean, I believe you. It's funny.
I think if Michigan scores 14 points, they could pull their starters. Like that, you've scored enough to win the game. Like I don't think there's any way Iowa scores more than 1 touchdown. So
it's crazy. So
I could just be writing a bunch of receipts that are going to backfire in my face and make me look like a gigantic idiot. But because I think I said all the same stuff with TCU last year, but Iowa
there's no way.
They don't even play the same sport Michigan does.
Yeah. No, I had a joke on Monday Night Football because that was the Bears 12-10 win. They won with all field goals, and I made a meme from the Field of Dreams when they say, "Is this heaven?" No, it's Iowa. And I said, "Is this Bears football?" No, it's Iowa, because it felt exactly the same as Iowa football. Mm-hmm. So
that's all the thoughts I have on that game. If anything, I bet the over, and you got to bet Michigan, and I'm going to be looking for like team total unders for Iowa, maybe some stuff like that. I do think, though, this could be a game. Yeah, if Michigan gets up 28-0, starters are pulled, and I'd hate to be betting an over in a 28-0 Michigan game, or 28-0 Michigan win when the final score ends up being like 35-0. You know, like if starters are pulled, it might get a little dicey. So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about some other college games here. Let's talk about Oregon, Washington. So, minus 9.5 to Oregon is the line, and 65.5 is the over under. That classic Pac-12.
Wow.
More is that number.
Double the Michigan Iowa game? Yeah.
Almost. 34.5 is Michigan. It's almost double.
Crazy. Yeah.
So
that's Big Ten football. Oregon against Washington.
That's right. So how do you feel about this game? Because when I first saw this line, my brain went immediately to Washington plus 9.5, because I was like, that's a pretty big number. And Washington's good. I mean, they're higher ranked than Oregon. They're undefeated.
Already beat them this year.
But the more I think about it, the more I tilt to Oregon minus 9.5. And currently, based on the odds, it would seem that a lot of the nation is too, because the odds are slightly worse for Oregon against the spread than Washington.
I wonder if it's going to get to 10.5 before the game.
And the Chicago Bulls freaking won. Freaking perfect. Wonderful. Just my luck. I
can't even tank correctly.
I know. What the heck?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I tried to talk myself into Washington, thinking kind of what we talked about with the NFL. It's like nobody wants Washington. Everybody's
Yeah.
disrespecting them. Everybody's very high on Oregon. Nobody's ever been lower on Washington. Are they feeling disrespected? They've already beat them this year. I just based on the where the line's at and all the bets coming in and just team matchups. So yes, Oregon lost that game. The other thing people say, this is kind of a logical fallacy, is like it's hard to beat a team twice. It's like, yes, that's true. If you haven't played either of the two games yet, once you've played the first game, it doesn't make it any harder now to beat them again. It's like the reason it's hard to beat a team twice is because you have to win two games. It's like now that you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying, where it's like now that we're playing the second game, you have to look at this as its own.
I think the reason that fallacy exists is because I think it's easy for teams to get in their head and they say, Washington can look at the film and say, "Well, this worked last time." I think the reason people say that is because in general, the team that lost before probably ends up. Um, I think people say that because the team that lost before has kind of a leg up because they can look at, oh, what can we do differently and fix? Whereas the team that won probably looks at it and is like, well, we did everything well and we executed and we won. It's probably harder to be critical, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that could be, and that might just be a coaching kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wonder though too. It's like I think it's more the logical fallacy of like it's really hard to flip a coin four times and get tails all four times. It's like, okay, well, if I flip it three times, I got tails all three times. That doesn't make it less likely now that I'm going to hit it
Right.
the fourth
Right.
time. You know what I mean? So I wonder if it's some of that too. Basically, though, this is just such a bad matchup, I think, for Washington. They've been kind of on a downward trend. Oregon's been on an upward trend. Washington's defense isn't good. Oregon's defense is. And I think Oregon's going to have success running the ball. Washington's defensive front's not very good, and they really rely on like big plays, contested catches, and they have Adunze, right? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah.
Who's
I
able to
believe
make those
so.
kind of catches. You have Penix, who's able to make those kind of throws. But Oregon relies a lot more on an offense that is sustainable, where it's like they scheme guys open. They're throwing a lot more,
Yeah.
check downs and screens and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. I just think Washington's very big player reliant. And here now in a rematch in a neutral site game, I think the book is trying to get people to bet Washington and they can't. So what concerns me is that everybody likes Oregon. Like anytime everybody seems like they're on one side, it does make me
Yeah.
nervous. But just matchup wise, I do think Oregon's going to win the game. Um, I don't know if this line gets out to 10, 10 and a half. At that point, it might just be such a big number. I do bet Washington to cover. I do think Georgia wins or Oregon wins the game though. So
What do you think about the over under?
when I see a number
I
like
like
that, I want to bet the under.
I like
Um,
the over. Pac-12 before
yeah,
until they have the stench of Big Ten football attached to them.
right. They haven't been infected yet by
Yeah,
facing Iowa on a field. Yeah, yeah,
dude. Imagine if next year it was like, yeah. Imagine if it was a high scoring team like Oregon against Iowa or
yeah.
Nebraska.
Because which team brings the other team to their style of play? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'd have to be lower scoring or just a blowout because I don't think there's anybody on this planet who can get Deacon Hill to play a high scoring game.
Yeah, okay,
Well,
you need to give Deacon Hill a freaking break, dude. What the heck?
speaking of break, Deacon
Does
Hill's
he
going to
have?
be fixing brakes at an auto shop this time
How's,
next year.
does this guy have like nude pictures of you or something like what we
He
need?
may, yeah.
The way you're threatening him, probably a
Oh man,
sweet, probably a sweet chubby boy.
yeah, maybe.
All right,
Yeah, that's
so
all.
yeah, okay. So let's do Oklahoma State and Texas. So 14.5 is the line. Texas the favorite. 54.5 is the over under here. I gotta be honest, that over is interesting to me.
Mm.
More money is going to the over, which in a weird way gives me confidence. um, but I don't know. I'm not really interested in 14.5.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
tough number.
but the over, I like the over looking at this.
Yeah, I think over under is an interesting side to play. I think I am going to take Texas minus 14 and a half. I like Oklahoma State. Gundy, or not Gundy. What's his name?
Yeah,
I'm a
I'm a
man.
man.
I'm
I'm
40.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's his
that's
first
Mike
name?
Gundy, right?
Mike Gundy. I was thinking Stan Van Gundy.
Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah, legendary college football coach. But he's been. I mean, he's known for
Holy
that
cow.
speech, right? But
Yeah.
he's kind of quietly been just a very good coach now for several years. But matchup wise, it's just what they try to do. I think their running back at Oklahoma State, he leads the nation in rushing yards. He's up to like 1,400 or something, like 20 rushing touchdowns. But
Best
Texas's strength,
best running back in Oklahoma State history.
yes, um, but that doesn't pair well with what Texas is best at, which is their defensive front. If
Yeah.
Texas has a weakness, it's the passing game. That's what lost
Right.
them the Oklahoma game. And I don't think Oklahoma State has the ability to exploit that. 14 and a half, you're on the wrong side of a key number, but I think the book's trying to get people to bet Oklahoma State. Texas, too, knows they're kind of on the fringe of the playoffs here, and all they can do is blow this team out and try to make a
Right.
strong case. I think Texas keeps the starters in the whole game. I think they try to run the score up and they try to win this by 35 points. So I am going to take Texas minus 14 and a half. Obviously, the number's not a great number to bet, but just based on scenario of them needing to score a lot of points and look impressive, and this being a real, just stylistically, I don't know how Oklahoma State moves the ball. So I'm going to take Texas here for sure.
All right, I'm gonna keep us going here because I want to hit these last two. So we have Louisville and Florida State. The line is 2.5. Louisville is the underdog. The over under is 47.5. That over under I do not like.
Yeah,
Probably gonna go under there, especially with Florida State's injury
I would
at
if I had to. Yeah,
quarterback. 2.5 is an interesting number two. Uh, to me, that would seem to favor the Florida State side a little bit because all you need is a field goal to win. And I probably would side with that. But the Notre Dame fan side of me wants to see another team fail against Louisville. So uh, I probably will not bet Louisville, but I might out of emotion and again chaos. So
this is interesting because the line's been 2.5, but it feels like everybody, and I haven't looked at the numbers as far as who's betting what, but like all the talking heads, media, people with shows who are previewing this, a lot of like almost everybody I've seen is picking Louisville to win this,
to win outright.
to win outright.
So okay, so I'll tell you. So right now it's minus 115 on Louisville plus 2.5, and 105
Yeah,
minus 105 to Florida State.
I could see this
Louisville
getting to 2 or 1.5, and then I would just hammer Florida State money line.
Louisville Louisville money line is only plus 104.
Hmm.
So that, I mean, to me that's not saying, yeah, that's agreeing with what you're hearing everybody say.
I think too, this is one of those spots where a lot of people are saying they think obviously the quarterback injury is tough for Florida State. Everybody's picking Louisville to win. I wonder though, is that more wishful thinking of it'd be really nice? And I'm the same way. I don't want Florida State to be in the playoff. Like it sucks for the team, it sucks for their fans. It's not going to be in a 14 playoff. You're basically
Right.
ruining one of the three games. Like it's
Yeah.
sorry, like you're
Two
just
games.
not. Yeah, it's just you're not one of the best four teams without Jordan Travis. You might
Yep.
be one of the four most deserving teams, but you're not one of the four best teams. So of course people are going to hope that you're eliminated, except
Right.
for whoever's going to maybe be the one seed and play you.
Right.
I think though a lot of the Louisville's going to win kind of thing might be more just hoping that happens. Um, Jeff Brom's done a really good job for Louisville, but Florida State, even without Jordan Travis has several star players on that team, like a Keon Coleman, like a Jared Verse, who could step up and wreck that game. And so, with it being a short line there, I am going to take Florida State. I'm going to be betting them. And if I'm wrong, it's kind of a win-win situation because then they're out of the playoff picture.
Yeah. Which opens the door for Ohio State.
Even better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one, Georgia, Bama. Georgia's a 5.5 point favorite. And the line and the over-under is 54.5. So I'll be honest.
I like
this
the
one,
under.
yeah, I like the under on this one as well. Sorry guys, you're not Pac-12 or Big 12. You're just measly SEC. So here's my biggest hang-up, and I've talked to you about this. I agree with you that Alabama's not what they normally are. But I can't get it out of my head that Georgia has never beaten Alabama in the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels, I know records are meant to be broken, but like, I don't know. It feels like that's something that kind of is hanging there, if that makes sense.
I went back, so I was very confidently taking Georgia, even when the line was 6.5 when it first came out and we were talking about it. I still am going to take Georgia.
Yeah.
I just maybe this might be the other side of what I was talking about with Florida State. It's hard to separate my wishful thinking from what I think will actually happen. Yeah. I would love Bama to win this game. It just would be fun and bring some chaos in, shake the seeding around. Michigan probably gets the 1 seed, but I don't know. Georgia's one of those teams. So Milroe, Bama's quarterback, he's very boom or bust. He has a cannon of an arm. He can run for 70-yard touchdown just like that. There's no in between though. He has no intermediate passing game. He has no ability to sustain drives. The recipe to beat Georgia, I think, would be like last year what Ohio State did. You have elite receivers and you just throw the ball all over the field. Alabama doesn't have the ability to do that. Their defense is really good, which is why I like the under. I think you've got 2 good defenses. I don't know how Alabama's going to have the ability to put multiple touchdown drives together on Georgia's defense. I mean, it was that 4th and goal from the 31 or whatever against Auburn. Like, that's a crazy moment. You needed a 4th and 31 to beat Auburn. It's just not the same Alabama team. And, like, you still have to give them their props because they've been winning all these games. They've been in multiple really close games against really bad teams. And I know Georgia's had a few of those too, but Kirby Smart has the ability to motivate his team better probably than any coach in the country. And he's telling his team, like, he's able to somehow pull the disrespect card constantly where it's like, nobody's disrespecting you. Or it's like, nobody believes we could do this. It's like, everybody thought you were going to win this game, but the players buy in. And, he's telling them, like, they haven't lost a regular season game in like 3 years. And he's telling them, like, oh, nobody believes in you. And if we lose this game, we're out of the playoff. And I don't know. I just think Georgia's going to show up, do one of those vintage Georgia things where the second you think this might be a spot, they play the best game they've played in months. So, no, I think Georgia, the more I look at the actual matchups, I think Georgia's going to win this game by 2 or more scores.
Wow.
Yeah, I think this is the spot where,
if that's the case, then take an alternate line.
I did think about that. I was like, should I do like a 20.5?
20.5.
Yeah, and like do like a quarter unit bet on it.
That's interesting.
It's like if Georgia wins, I think they win big. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, hey, so here's the deal, listeners or viewers. We have gone very long, going in depth on college football. I don't really think there's any specific NFL game that stands out to me more than others this upcoming week. So we'll just keep this to a college football episode since it's championship week. And we'll, especially with college football winding down, other than bowl season, we'll have a lot more NFL focus moving forward. So But you can always follow. I don't post my picks on Twitter, but you can follow Michigan Hat at Michigan Hats with an S, and he'll be posting his picks throughout the weekend, I'm sure. But what I want to do, we have our Sharp Money Shootout, which I conveniently picked the games from this championship weekend. I included all of the games, though, so that includes SMU and Tulane and Liberty and New Mexico State, which I know nothing about those teams. So if it lands on one of those, we'll see what happens. But
here's what I'm gonna do. Because we're still figuring out the details of how we do this. I think I won the shootout.
Yeah,
at least
you're
last
2-0.
time.
You're 2-0. I'm 0-2.
Or I mean, I won the draw. Like I picked first.
Yeah.
So for this one, I'm just gonna let you. We'll spin the wheel. You pick your play first.
Okay. All right.
And yeah.
So I'm gonna spin the wheel. Here we go. Let's see what we get. Oh man. Can you feel the tension in the room? All right. We just talked about this game, but Georgia and Alabama is what comes up. So for anybody, if you haven't watched us play this before, normally we count down, but with our delay, we're still trying to figure out a way around that. But the way we do this is that. So for today, I will pick the which way I want to go, and then the rule is that Shane is going to have to go directly in opposition to me. So he can't go if I said Alabama plus 5.5. He can't be like, all right, well, I'm going to choose
the under or whatever.
Yeah, or this player to score a touchdown or whatever. So that being said,
because this one I think we both agreed on both picks.
Well, yeah. I'm a little more on the fence with one, which is why I'm going to go with the under 54.5.
So the under is the one you're more confident in?
Yeah.
All right, I'll take the over. I was also leaning under, but the one I felt better about was Georgia. So
there you go.
If I have to, I was worried you were going to take Georgia, and I was going to have to bet Bama. So I think you're on the right side. I like the under, but I would rather oppose you with the over than with Bama.
See, the Bama Georgia thing, I that's the one I'm unsure of. Like, I think the realistic side of me says it's Georgia all the way, but there's a small side of me that's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Bama, that's intriguing. So better safe than sorry. Just play the total. So, all right, very good. So again, we're keeping track of that. We are still working on compiling rules for this game. Hopefully I get a win because I'm 0-2, as I stated so far. And we'll see what college football championship weekend brings for us this upcoming weekend. Yeah, so please make sure to follow us on Twitter at FuriousGeorge94, at Michigan Hat with an S at the end. Especially if you're wanting betting picks, like I said, Michigan Hat does a great job of that. Where is he? There he is. He's on that side of me. So you'll want to make sure you follow him there. For me, you follow if you want to laugh at jokes or see me vent about the Bears, or
your Twitter's a good follow,
or celebrate when in the next 72 hours the Cubs sign Shohei Ohtani. All right.
Well,
so
you're also retweeting the articles you write there, right?
Oh yeah,
Third Down
of course.
Thursdays.
Of course.
And yeah, you should be reading those. So
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, as for Shane and myself, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wild Wild Bets. We hope that you are hope that you're joining us in the outlaws of the West of robbing the sports books of their hard-earned money. So thanks again for listening, and have a wonderful Wild West slippery wet weekend of betting.
bye.